Welcome to Always Blue. I'm your host, Tim Rahilly, president of Mount Royal University, and my co-host today is MRU podcast extraordinaire, Meg Wilcox. Thanks for joining me today, Meg.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Tim.
No, as we say in French, c'est moi qui vous remercie. It's me who thanks you, because we're sitting in this wonderful podcast studio that I think is, I'm sure others, but your brainchild.
Yeah, it's a bit my baby. I actually did all the design for the space. So even the chairs, the tables, like the layout and everything. If there's anything you don't like about it, you can complain to me about it later. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I like the blue things on the wall. That's right on brand.
The acoustic paneling with the gray. And then we sort of went a bit mid-century with the coloring, right? Sort of like the walnut colored tables and then the green chairs. And we've got some editing suites in the corners too. So yeah, it's a nice multi-purpose space.
So I know we have a guest later, but so I've known Meg since 2019. When I arrived at the university, we had a bit of a love-in, or at least that was the aim, to have a love-in for me, even though no one knew me. And Meg was the talk show host, so to speak, who interviewed me in Ross Glen Hall. And that's when we first encountered each other.
Yeah, well, that's how I met you. I knew there was a new president coming to the university, and they're like, you're going to sit on a couch and ask him a bunch of questions. And it was a little intimidating, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, we talked about shoes and important topics in post-secondary. Yes. Tell us, how long have you been at MRU?
It's been about 11 years, I think, all in. And that would mean then about 8 of them have been as like full-time faculty.
Right.
So, yeah.
And you recently finished a doctorate?
Yeah, my PhD in, they just changed the program name, Media and Cultural Policy in the Cultural Industries at the University of Glasgow. But it's really about podcasting and working with people and collaborative audio making.
Right. And you've done a lot of really cool work with some local podcasters, some of our students who are going on to do great things.
Yeah, it's neat now that our journalism program is really adopted, and I think since I came in, we made a push for more audio work, to see all the interesting places people are ending up and doing that work, whether it's traditional stuff like, say, CBC podcasts, or working in podcast marketing, or starting their own series, or working in communications.
Right. So I'm sure there's nothing else to know about you, Meg. We've
Nothing.
covered it all.
Yes.
And so we can transition to our soon-to-be celebrity guest, Dr. Dan Devoe, who is in our Department of Psychology. Dan, thanks for being here.
Oh, anytime.
So I'm a fan because you're out there. Like, you're doing a fair bit of media.
I do a lot of media, yes.
And do you get good feedback about that?
I think so far, good feedback. I don't know if I've gotten anything negative so far. I don't know. Maybe my dean will tell me someday.
Some of your colleagues are like...
But if you get any negative feedback, then you have haters, and that just means you're actually doing even better.
Wasn't there the old saying, right? There's no bad press?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So maybe same kind of line of thinking, Dan, to you. So you're fairly new to MRU, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, I'm pretty new. I started as a contract faculty for 1 semester, and then I have been here for 4 years now.
How's it going?
I'm surviving. Between the faculty reports and all that sort of stuff. I love it here. It's good culture. Love the students, love the atmosphere here. I feel like I'm home.
Oh, wonderful. And tell us a little bit about the students. Like, what are they like in the classroom?
You get all sorts of students from all different walks of life, especially here at Mount Royal, like mature to they just merged in right from high school. I don't know. I guess the best way to describe a Mount Royal classroom is it's intimate. You don't got this massive classroom where you're looking up at some sort of god on a podium amongst 300 people. And you just get to check in with them and see them. And even at like the grad, it's so exciting. They're all coming up to you and saying like, you said this thing to me and it really resonated, or thanks for this research opportunity, or, you just have so much more experience with the actual students. You can actually provide real references.
So I wonder if psych students are the same as your students.
I don't know. Hard to say. I mean, I'd agree that the smaller classes, getting to know students, I aim within 2 to 3 weeks to know like students' names and
Absolutely.
To get to know. And I think I could imagine, especially in something like psychology as well, getting to know the people on a personal level helps them apply concepts and share things with you or not in a way that you feel closer.
Yeah, it's a unique brand within psych too, right? Because you're in there talking about emotions and why we do the things we do. And sure enough, with that stimulus, a student's going to come to you and say, oh, I have this thing, right? Does this mean that? And I'm like, oh no, let's sit down and let's unpack this. Have a little bit of fun with it from a science perspective.
Now, you're known, like I've heard even reputationally around the school, that you're very known for being like taking really difficult or big ideas and making them very digestible for students to engage with. And I'm wondering how have you developed that in your teaching, or what inspired you to take that on in your teaching?
Okay, well, do you go to Costco?
I try to avoid it, but I love it.
I take my life in my hand and I go.
You do, right? We all do, right?
Yeah.
It's a conquest, right, to go to Costco. So, I mean, when I think about teaching, and I was in Costco one day and I was like, what really draws me in to Costco? And I was thinking, it's the samples. It's all the little morsels that they get you to try, and they try to lure you into that bigger box, right?
The biggest box.
The
yes.
biggest box.
The Costco size.
And I do. I'm a sucker for it. I always go for it. But when you're thinking about teaching and you're trying to get this information across, psych is quite complex. So is everything that we do. I started to think about it like, it's like I want to take them on a journey of sampling at Costco and just get the hook or get the lure in and have a little bit of fun with it before we try to consume that whole Costco box at the end of the day. A little bit of it is also, I'm an East Coaster. I'm from PEI. I grew up with not like big fish stories, but big fish stories. My dad's a Cape Bretoner. My family's from rural PEI. So as you can imagine, you grow up realizing that even just going to a grocery store or getting some gas turns into some massive tale. And I start to think about it in terms of teaching. That's all the stuff I remember. You have to stitch it as a story.
So where does the metaphor break down?
It always breaks down.
So
Because then you got this big box of Costco stuff freezing in your freezer forever.
that's what I'm like. It's like, is it like 48 rolls of paper towel, or like, what's the equivalent? Is it that everyone who's in your class ends up doing a major in psychology and goes to grad school and becomes a psychologist? Are you just trying to hook them, or what's that?
I'm really passionate about psych, and not just necessarily counseling or being a psychologist, but getting people. I'm more geared towards like, how can I get you just involved in science? Like, I love science. If I can get students just excited about it and wanting to tweak it and understand it and push the boundaries of it, that's where I go.
Do they normally arrive interested in science, though?
No.
Maybe I'm in arts.
Heck no.
So.
I teach research methods. Nobody wants to be there on day one.
But by the end, yeah.
By the end, yeah, I got feedback, where students are like, I didn't realize research methods could be funny or exciting, or, that I could actually understand this a little bit more. And most of them, I'll be honest with you, 95% of them probably won't use a good chunk of that in their career. But if I can instill in them how to understand and unpack science just a little bit more, I feel like I've checked that box at the end of the day.
Well, that's really cool, because I think, when I'm out and about talking to folks and trying to advocate for MRU and the importance of the sector,
Yeah.
frankly, because to me, not to get too controversial, but it does feel like the post-secondary sector has some headwinds. What's the value of a post-secondary sector? What's the value of a degree? I have nothing bad to say about skills-based education, depending on how we define what is a skill. But critical thinking
Absolutely.
is super important. And even if if they're not active researchers, that ability to parse and know the difference between something, when they read something in the paper that says, 8 out of 10 dentists recommend Trident gum or whatever, big gum, maybe funding that.
It's making me want some right now.
But so you teach research methods, but you're also actively engaged in terms of research.
Yes, absolutely.
So what are some of the, because you comment in on a lot of things.
Yes.
But what are some things that you're actively involved in from a research perspective?
From a research perspective, I do lots of psychosis and eating disorder research. It might be my background's more psychiatric epidemiology, so looking at like how many individuals with psychosis are utilizing cannabis. Some of it can be a little bit boring to the everyday person. I'm really moving into this kind of recovery space where we're starting to look at mental health and addictions as well from a different angle. Like, hey, maybe I don't need to be trapped here for the rest of my life. Maybe there is a journey component to it, and someday I'll be exactly where I want to be. And also just kind of philosophically, because I do lots of mental health and addictions, I'm I'm starting to kind of alter my perspective on how we can actually approach it and have some kind of maybe controversial ideas. I start to think of it like, why can't we kind of reframe it not only beyond recovery, but what if there is a cure, And I push my students on that. I'm like, maybe there really might never be one, but if you think about the cancer literature, for example, that has done wonders for research and investment and trying to understand what is going on in that paradigm. And I think we should do the same in psych.
Super interesting when you see those marketing campaigns like, basically let's kick cancer in the butt or something
let's
like that.
Let's kick mental health and addictions in the butt.
Yeah, that's so. And do your students respond well to this kind of challenge?
They love it. It becomes this massive debate, especially when I bring up the cure stuff and recovery. They're like, no, this is it's permanent. Like the textbook says, it makes it seem like it's permanent. I'm like, but is it? Because we know people get better.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely people who fully get rid of things like depression or eating disorders or, other types of disorders within the DSM. So maybe we just need to push that a little bit more.
Well, not to get too psyche, but it is really interesting in the context of the increase in the number of things that are being put into diagnoses and the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistics Manual, and this notion of diagnosis first.
Yes.
And I'm arriving in the room and my diagnosis precedes me.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like you carry it like a badge, right? And so, and people are diagnosing themselves with AI and all sorts of things. And for some people it's freeing, for other people it adds stigma.
Sure.
And they don't know, like, is there an endpoint to this? Is this a permanent?
Yeah. Well, it makes me think of what you were saying before. I don't know, Meg, you maybe haven't experienced this, but in the dark ages when I was a psych student and later teaching, you do go through this period where students, it seems early in the semester, think they have everything you're talking about. Yeah. And then what happens next is after they figure out they don't have everything under the sun, they then start thinking everyone else has.
Diagnose yourself and then others.
But that's what makes them a good psychologist. They just assume everybody else has something.
Well, and it makes me think, too, with more and more students that are now reporting increased, I'm thinking, challenges with mental health.
Big time.
It must be something that you're encountering in class, not just content, but also with the students.
All the time. Emails, in-person meetings, after classes. I don't think it's more common than it's ever been. I think it's just more acceptable to talk about it. I don't think the needle's changed at all. And I don't think we'll ever have the evidence to show otherwise.
And I guess, how does that change your teaching, too? That's an extra load of like spending time with students, connecting, sort of a bit of that counseling role a bit, too. I guess, how do you manage that?
It's a great question. So there's different ways we can approach teaching and approach our classrooms. Some people check in, check out. That's one method. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not judging those people. The other thing is to just get involved in someone else's story and try to help them shape their own story. And that's where I actually get my energy from at this institution and anywhere that I'm working with students or trainees. Someday, I hope when I'm like 80, if I make it there, when you think about merit, I guess when I go back to merit, like you can think, oh, I'm a great professor, or I can teach well, or I published X amount of papers. But I truly believe at the end of the day, if a student wrote me a letter when I was really old and told me that I changed their life, that this really stuck with them, and I don't even remember, that is the merit I want.
It's interesting, of course, you have to walk a fine line when people are sharing their lives
100%
with you and knowing, when you're talking about something in the abstract and when you're talking about something core to them. And you're not practicing psychology.
Not practicing at all.
On them. But there is, I think, in the background, it seems to me, I don't know if this will resonate, Dan, but an underlying conversation around who owns your mental health.
Yeah.
And in this landscape of people kind of, you could have a mix of people who have, genetic predisposition, lived experience, have worked with mental health professionals, or are using AI to diagnose themselves, or their friend is saying, you have depression. there sometimes seems to be a conversation about then who needs to own and operate their
Yes.
lives.
Yeah. I don't think there's a perfect answer for that. Obviously, I think we have to approach it from a community perspective, right? Because there's just so many nuances and so many things going on. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think we have to realize that we want to give agency back to individuals who are suffering from addictions and mental health, or even if it's not necessarily just mental illness, let's use that word, and they're just trying to think better, think clearer, be more motivated, have better New Year's resolution goals or something of that nature, to give them back that agency. Because when we create these accredited systems, becoming a psychologist, or even programs within a university, sometimes accidentally or otherwise, we take that agency away.
Which has the potential to actually have negative effects.
Big time, right? So they have learned helplessness.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's nothing I can do with this, and that's a dark place to be.
Right. And it's one thing if it's temporary, but it's another thing if it's lifelong.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I recall, if I'm going back to the post-pandemic panel I saw you on, I think there was a conversation about kind of isolation.
Oh, yes.
And, the people are talking a lot about isolation in our community right now, or communities, and this notion of, I think it was social fuel.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've done a lot on kind of isolation and loneliness and thinking about social fuel, or you might want to call it social economy, or think of it like gas mileage. Like how can you get there, right? So we might be boxed in. It's a really weird paradigm right now, right? So you have more access to everybody anywhere than we ever have. Yet there's more loneliness than there ever has been. So why is that? And how can we unpack that and get a little bit of social fuel and get better economy in our social lives? And so a lot of that has to do with some basic elements of, getting yourself back out there with people face to face. Consistency. It's a really simple concept, but just consistently seeing the same people over and over again is going to give you that social fuel. And looking into things that actually put into you to get you out there and socializing. And I don't think socializing or getting social fuel is the end to loneliness, because some people generally and legitimately enjoy being alone. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But they're still going to have to socialize in some sort of aspect, whether that's work or otherwise. So I like to think of things lately when I think of loneliness or even psychological paradigms. I like to think about it in terms of economics. For your thinking patterns, for example, I go back to the old adage, a penny for your thoughts. Let's really unpack what that means, right? Let me ask you this, Tim. How much is your thoughts worth?
Sadly, not very much.
I think they're worth a ton, right? And do you ever spend time thinking, endlessly thinking about something that someone said or something that happened here at work? And at the end of the day, you realize when you think about social fuel or thought economy, wow, I gave my whole day of thinking processes away to this topic. You're trying to outthink a problem you can't.
Interesting. What else are you writing about these days?
I do lots of writing. Besides, let's skip the boring research stuff. So I do children's books, write children's books, illustrate. Haven't been off them for a while and just kind of kicked it into high gear this year. So I've just finished up 3 books for the written portion, not the illustration. And I'm kind of working in towards getting them out the door by Christmas or late next year.
Do you illustrate them yourself?
I do. Yeah. I do illustrations as well. Yeah.
Are the 3 on different topics, or is this part of a little series?
No,
or?
They're completely different topics.
Yeah, what are they about?
Yeah. Well, my original one was a whimsical tale that's published. That was a long time ago. The Whale Who Ate Everything. I don't even know why I wrote it. Just because it rhymed. It seemed nice at the time. And it did quite well for itself. Right now I'm writing about a sock, right? I know, it sounds really weird. And so I was thinking about it. I'm have you ever been in this situation where you're where's that damn sock? right? And you're looking, and sure enough, you find one behind the washer, you find one underneath your bed. And I start to think about like loneliness, going back to the concepts of loneliness, more of my mental health and kind of just like psychological behaviors are being patched into my children's stories. And I'm like, this sock is like dreaming like, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to write a big story about a sock that's just kind of, it's lonely, it's looking for that perfect match in life. And inevitably it ends well, right?
Good.
And,
I was starting to worry.
right,
about
you are
poor little
worrying,
sock.
right?
I was invested.
Yeah, you were invested in the end. So I have a 5-year-old and she loves wearing 2 different kinds of socks all the time. And so at the end of the story, it's about, it doesn't have to be a perfect match. You can find companionship and you can find excitement and you can have a journey with anybody in this world. That's one of them.
That's great.
But case in point.
Case in point.
Yeah. No, that's really, well, it's crafty. I don't know if it's subtle or unsubtle, but it's,
There's a little bit of both. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. Yeah. But you both, in terms of this issue of students and their well-being,
Yeah.
and this is something that is very much on my mind. And, I don't think you have to have expertise in psychology to realize that. I remember years ago, there was a book by the head of the counseling center at Harvard called College of the Overwhelmed. And basically, the thesis of the book is going to university is bad for your mental health. Because you're learning a lot, which is exciting, but there's deadlines and there's pressure and there's stress and expectations. And, there's all the developmental stuff, where traditional age students are coming to us and they're trying to figure out their way in the world. And you must encounter overwhelmed students all the time.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious actually from both of you, because I don't think, again, like, what do you tell these students?
I'm going to defer to the psychologist first.
Wow. Just chucking that hot potato. Extra hot. As you know, Tim, I think it's highly idiosyncratic, depending on the individual. I think at the end of the day, a student, just like anybody else that you encounter in this life, is wanting someone that just genuinely listens to them. And I think that's worth its weight in gold. And that's the first step. The second one is, when they're feeling overwhelmed and those sorts of things, or you hear about this Harvard piece, I try to tell them, like, and I try not to be cheesy about it. I'm like, this is a journey.
Uh-huh.
And grit, something that we seem to not like in our lives anymore in society. We're always looking for the easy way out.
I am.
Yeah. And I do too, right? But grit is a good thing, right? You have to sharpen a knife with something else. It takes grit, You have to have that in your life and kind of trying to appreciate that journey. When I was a student, I was incredibly anxious, like incapacitated with anxiety from exams. I barely made it through. I can't tell you how many times my grandmother died when an exam came out. And I say that as a joke, but I actually did do that a couple times. I know it's terrible, but I started to kind of unpack that for myself. And I was like, no one gave me the tools or sat down to talk to me or tried to make me understand why I felt this anxiety was so incapacitating. And the more I unpacked it, I'm like, I saw every little thing as having to be perfect in that journey. And I just needed someone to tell me, like, not everything has to be perfect. There's going to be a little bit of grit and pushback along it. And this is just a journey. Try to enjoy it as best as you can.
Well, I appreciate the answer. I mean, I think for all of us who've been in the classroom, part of that is, the great thing about, and it's not meant to be a commercial message for Mount Royal, but that connection with the faculty member really goes a long way, right? And that notion that, thanks for telling me about that.
Yeah.
And you're not alone.
Yeah.
And
pat on the back.
And suck it up.
Suck it up. Yeah.
No, but also, and we have these colleagues. We're really lucky at Mount Royal. We have colleagues who also, in terms of that we can refer to.
Yes, that is an amazing feature. Like our wellness services here, like I really encourage students not only talking to them, but to get checked into there. I try to look at resources in Calgary for them and send them an email about resources they can get themselves plugged into. I don't know if there's a good book that I think would be, that's on my shelf that would be fit for that student situation. I go grab my book and I give it to them to read.
Yeah, and I think I think for faculty, it can seem overwhelming when students are speaking to you about that stuff. But, I think some of that's about connection. And it's also like putting some of those students to work, come to my podcast studio and make some friends and have some of those social connections, because in many ways that goes a long way too, right?
It makes me think in journalism, at least, one of the concepts we teach starting right from first year and what makes a story is tension. And this doesn't have to be conflict, but it's that idea of what's unexpected or what's different and balancing between these two ideas. And I think the first thing we try to teach is that tension is good. You don't have a story without it. And yes, we all go for the easy route, or we like it when it's easy. But I also try to remind students that if everything was easy and you knew everything already, you wouldn't need to be here.
That's right.
And so it's okay if it isn't. Ideally, I should be challenging you. Like, we should be making things harder for you to do in class, but not impossible.
Not overwhelming.
And that if you have support from your classmates or from me, like, we're here to help you figure it out. Because I do think, especially in the earlier years, one of the most important things a student can learn is to ask for help. And
Yeah.
That's a learned skill as well. And I know that sometimes it may feel more successful than others when they're reaching out. But it's also part, I think, as you mentioned, our faculty role is recommending to the wonderful resources we have on campus compared to other places that I've seen, at least. We have so much and great people that are there.
Well, I think there's a really important analogy here to learning as well. So, my type of psychology is more learning focused. But, that notion of cognitive disequilibrium, it's much like the journalistic notion of tension, right? Like, if you're teaching a class and, if your students knew everything, they don't need you, right? So you have to kind of create that, I didn't, have you ever thought about psychology as economy? Okay, that is actually, that's disequilibrium at work. And it's like, okay, now I need to think about this to kind of get my brain back in a steady state, right? So this is fascinating. I'll share that I started my career, I taught classes of like 500.
Oh, wow.
And me and my small army of TAs.
Yeah.
And so I count I think at MRU we're pretty lucky.
Very.
With that sense of connection and, the type of people that we have that work here teaching. It makes a huge difference. I know as we think about this, as we wind down, maybe we should do some short snappers.
Snappers it is.
Okay. Why don't you start us off?
All right. Favorite children's book?
Are these supposed to be snappy? I don't know. Where the sidewalk ends.
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay.
Shel Silverstein.
What's the best way to wind down from a long, hard day?
Wow, these are again. I'm like, wow, I didn't.
Now I see why you were so anxious as an undergraduate.
For snapper. Because am I allowed to say a whiskey?
Just one.
Why not?
Just one. Wine. Okay, wine.
Yeah.
Last great movie or TV show that you've seen or are watching?
Oh, Project Hail Mary.
So good.
Amaze.
Wow. Well, I thank you, Dan, for doing this.
Anytime.
And thanks for all the work that you do. And for our students. And Meg, same to you. I mean, I know you're joining me as a co-host today, but I can't help but make that analogy as one of our professors. For both of you, the work you do is amazing and so grateful. It makes working here. I'm excited. I miss the classroom. So just knowing that I have these colleagues doing this work is very exciting for me. So we'll wind it down there. Thanks everyone for joining us. And yay, you too. Always Blue is produced by Mount Royal University's Office of Alumni Relations and is recorded in person in the Community Podcast Initiative studio. For more information about the Community Podcast Initiative, visit the website, thepodcaststudio.ca.